Hey there, it is Tomster on the behalf of Indie Structural Productions once again, and we're going to start a new build. One of the key components of this build is actually the top. Now, this piece of walnut that I jointed back in 2013, now I've been holding on to this for 7 years, and I've been waiting for the right opportunity to actually build this guitar out of this piece of wood. And now is that time. It is going to have an ash body, but instead of doing a one-piece ash body, I'm gonna do a two-piece out of this that I have, this leftover ash that I've had in storage for a little while now. So two-piece ash body. Then there's a one-piece wenge neck. Now I've had this wenge lying around since 2016, so that's been waiting around for God knows how long, and I've always wanted to pair that piece of wenge up with this fretboard that I made out of curly birch, or Carillion birch, or one of the many different names that this has in English, but basically a Finnish, very highly figured piece of birch. And this is gonna be the fretboard for it. Now, it might not be as strong and as hard and as dense as maple is, but it is hard enough for this fretboard. And then I'm gonna finish that off with some binding out of this black walnut that I have, which I believe is left over from when I cut this up to this size. So a lot of old woods that I've had in storage waiting around forever for me to actually get started with this build in particular. So this is gonna be the Celeste 2.0, and I've been waiting to build this guitar for like 6 years now. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's gonna be a lot of fun. This walnut has these two big knots in it, and in order to make it a bit more stable, I need to fill those up. So I'm gonna use some resin, probably pigment it black, and yeah, so let's go for it. I'm gonna be using some ebony dust as well in combination so I can get it nice and black. Now this is gonna be the underside. So of course, if I were just to pour straight on there, it will pour all the way through. So I'm gonna use some aluminum tape to seal up the voids from the underside all the way around the cavity. Hopefully it doesn't come through there. Might need to add a little bit there. All right. So that's all blocked up, clogged up. I have a tray so that if I do have any spillage through, it'll go onto the tray instead of all over my workbench. All right. And you can see the viscosity of this stuff change as you're mixing it. Put in ebony dust. You can easily put in more. And here we go. Now I could just pour it in, but I don't want to miss and waste epoxy. So I'm just kind of dabbing in. Now just to make sure, don't see any leaks on the other side. That's always a positive thing. And the other one, little taps. Just to make sure that if there's any air in there, I'm getting rid of that. Nothing's leaking through. It's always positive. Just gonna chop this down to size. Yeah, cool. and we're off to the races, as it were. Now, I want to get this nicely jointed up. By the looks of it, we're looking very nicely planed already. There's a little bit of a wiggle, but not enough at this point that I should really be too worried about it, because we're going to be taking that down quite a bit still. So. That is a lovely, nicely planed surface right there. Good to move on. Right, now it is more a matter of trying to find what joint I want. I could go with that, but okay, so this is going to be the back side of it, basically. And honestly, yeah, that's what I want. That is what I want. Alright, so let's glue that up. I don't want too much, but I don't want too little either. Let's see how that's going to fare. Oh, that's way too little glue, I think. This just might actually be enough. Okay. Line that up with my marks. A little bit of rub so it doesn't move too much. The glue line is okay. And I think we're good to move on to the next part. I have a new neck template coming up, so as long as I just have a basic knot line, which is there, that's all I really need. Truss rod will go from there, down the middle, up to there. And now I need to go and hunt for a bit. I need a 6mm. Let's see if I can find one. I have a fence, which is basically resting up against a plane surface on one side, which will give me a nice even cut by following along. Let's start, shall we? Now, as long as I don't change that fence position at all, I can just move my clamps and keep going. There we are. Nicely slotted in there. And into the truss rod again, a little bit deeper, as it's meant to be. But this is now pretty much good to put a fretboard on. thickness down the body a bit. So, let's see. This is currently sitting at about 46. And my top is 13 at the moment. Now I got that glue line the way I wanted it to be. And then we're going to do the reverse of everything on the top. All right, sweet. That's where it'll be. It's all right. I can take it up a bit. The speed on this is ridiculous, but if I go slow enough, I'll be fine.
Okay.
Oh, battery's almost dead. Okay, with that horrible bit done, let's get the template on there. I always apply glue on the actual thing that's being worked on, just so that I can get it lined up. I don't accidentally get glue where I don't want it to be. All right, so need to make the back cavity. And if I were to do it after I put the top on, it's going to be pretty hard for me to figure out exactly where my chambering is. So now that I have this already at this point, it's much easier for me to just route out the back cavity now. So the first things first, I always need to remove all the excess material. So yeah. All right, now I do need to switch to a smaller bit. Now it gets interesting because we have so little area here to work with, but we can do this. I do believe we can do it. Those tools that I really have missed quite a lot. Drum sander. I'm just gonna get this cleaned up. A little bit at a time. Water turn. So, let's figure out this F-hole placement. Having to do it on the reverse, so I actually know where the cavity is. So, let's have a look roughly how things are laid out on some other guitars. So, I'm gonna use that side. That size I think is good. And roughly around there. All right, let's see how the tracing went. That actually looks pretty freaking cool and roughly exactly how I imagined it. Yeah, this is gonna be pretty cool. All right, let's go have a look if we could manage to bust this out today. Pretty sure we can. We got time today. Let's see how this goes.
Letting the saw do most of the work.
realized I didn't have my earplugs in. Alright, so now we get to the mildly terrifying bit of gluing on the top, which is fine. I just need to find my center lines, make sure that everything is as they should. But the center line on this top is somewhat of a mystery. So it goes here. Should be there. And there. Always do a dry run. Let's see. Let's see how close that is. I believe that is bang on the money. So usually I'll start off with doing both ends so I have the center line correct. Don't know. Okay. So I'll do it like so. And then it's just a matter of adding clamping pressure. I do not have enough clamps for this. There. Essentially, I only need them around where the top meets the body. Alright. I want to have that gluing down the middle block right there. How we're looking? Okay. I want that to be right there. I mean, who knows? We might be able to get away with this amount of clamps. Might be able to do it. If I need more clamps, then I'll sort that out at that point. But for now, I think that's more than enough. Okay, glue up time. My microphones are running kind of low on batteries, so we'll see how we get on. Essentially, these are the first two that I'm putting on. They're gonna be there to get my center line in check. Enough, but not too much. A lot less gluing surface than on a solid body instrument. But we'll start with that, see if we need to add in a bit. I think that is actually enough glue. Put a little bit more in the middle here. But then we need to get going. Because better not waste any time. Okay, here goes. Wish us luck. So again, finding the center lines here. There. And there. A little bit of a rub. And it's go time. Great. Got our center line. Then, no time to waste. Let's do this. We have a nice even splurge from all over. By the looks of it, I think that's that. All right. The fact that I've had this router bit for, well, longer than I care to admit, without using it is a travesty. So, finally, here we go. Final bit for the bobbin center, but we have the backplate to do, so we'll do that here as well. This is terrifying. Routing something this small is always just a complete nightmare. While it's taking away very little material, I don't want to take off my fingers, so here it goes. While it is taking away very little material, and I know that it will do a clean cut, I am taking this very slowly. Because, A, I don't want to screw up the piece. I also don't want to screw up my fingers. That's the scary part right here. And we're good. Like I said, it's nerve-wracking. There we go. Look at that. That's lovely. So it's time for some roundovers. I got that cleaned up. I already have my bit installed, but I do want to do a test piece just to make sure that I get the right kind of roundover on there. And it's not too big and it's not too small, but it's just right. Yeah, I think it should be just fine. No turning back now, but yeah, no, that's perfect. That is perfect. There's the little things. Now it's starting to look like a guitar. For sure. Big transition. Does a lot. So look at this. Dude. Look at that. Yeah. That's gorgeous.
very big round over, but for this one I kind of felt that it needed that.
These are now about 3 mil. Wonder we should go a little more, just a little more. That's perfect. These on the other side, like so. I'm gonna do this in 2 parts, just so there's no slip-ups. Then the other side, and which side? Time to glue up the binding on the fretboard. Now what we're going to use for that is just some masking tape, really. Same way that I would do binding normally. Doesn't really differ at all. So, what we want is the super flamey stuff to be that way around, so at the end. So, like so. Alright. Don't need much glue. Actually, much better to have just the right amount here, because we don't want to fill up the fret slots at all. And so just some masking tape. Try and switch that around every now and then, so I get an even amount of pressure. Key thing here is the binding is wider than the thickness of the fretboard, so I can put it a little over on both sides so that I can bring it down to flush. If it goes under that point, then it becomes a little bit of an issue, because if I have a gap somewhere, it'll be pretty annoying to fix up afterwards. So I'll try and avoid that. But yeah, just very little amount of glue. Well, I'm not trying to teach during this series. A good rule of thumb is always, if you can press a joint together with your fingertips, then you have a good joint. If you need too much pressure to actually get the joint to work, then you might have to reconsider working on that joint a little bit more. Because really, for binding stuff like this, you don't need anything more than masking tape. I could use clamps and all, but I'm only putting on a few mil worth of material, so I think the clamps would definitely be somewhat overkill. Alright, then going back, get pressure where I have gaps. Alright, sweet. Moving on. gluing on the fretboard. So, first things first, of course, we want to get the truss rod in place, like so. Oh. There, yeah, perfect. I don't want any glue getting into that part there, so I'm just going to seal that off with some masking tape. Burnish that down. Once again, kind of check. Yeah, should be just fine. Now, what I like to do is just make these a little pointy on one end. Makes it easier to get the fretboard on there. They are very tall, so I'll actually chop those down a bit. We don't want those to stick out at all. Years of doing tutorial content, and now I'm not supposed to. It's hard to break out of the habit. As my clamping calls, I have the neck template just fine on one side, and then a piece of wood or ply to press down the fretboard. Here we go. Don't want to put on too much glue, but also don't want to have too little. Right now I have a little bit too little. There's also a little bit of a test on whether I want to continue putting on the binding and getting the fretboard made before gluing it onto a neck. I want to see if it makes my life easier or more difficult. Now what I like to do is have clamps at both ends of the entire thing, but then lightly press down on either side, and then start moving the pressure out from the middle. So first clamp, tighten around the middle, and no, you don't need massive amounts of pressure if your glue joint is good, and you don't need massive amounts of clamps either. You might be prone to cracking your, what are they called? Locating pins. You might crack your locating pins, so that would not be ideal. Okay, I have even splooge from all over. I was told I should stop saying that word, but I can't help it. All right, looks good. Yeah, don't leave your cards lying around. Another day, another radiant bit. All right, now for the last bit.
those jigs that I have always seen people use, but I've never used myself. If it works, it will make my life so much easier. So essentially what we're doing is getting the scoop of the headstock in. And essentially it should work just by doing this. We'll see if it does. That's how it's done. It really shows that my Japanese saw skills are very rusty. Haven't used one in a couple of years, and it shows. There. And then we'll clean that up with the router, because now we have almost nothing left to route, which is more than ideal. All right. So essentially the goal is to clean up the underside of the fretboard. So technically we can take it to about there. Should be well and good. Now I need to hope that it doesn't break off the ends here of the binding, but we'll go slow.
Round over the edges just a tiny bit because I don't want it to be a pointy headstock. That's not really what this guitar is about. I think. That is it. Yeah.
Job done.
have the center line, and usually I end up going just a smidge under the, just a little bit under where the fretboard meets the neck. There we go. Just managed to pull it so that it didn't hit anything. That's nice. Then we're going to take an 8mm and open up that hole. Howl. I said that very strange. And also because now I'm using a twist bit, I don't want to go too far because then I'll hit the end of the truss rod and possibly ruin the place for the Allen key to sit. That would be very bad and would make the neck fairly unusable. Okay, so before radiusing the fretboard, just need to go ahead and check that the neck is straight. Okay, there is a tiny bit of relief in the middle, which is what we want in the end of it, but we need to get rid of that for the time being. So just a quarter turn, and we should be just fine. Three mil from the bottom of the fretboard is there. Put in the inlay, and then I trim the inlay with a jeweler's saw, because if I cut it with clippers, the inlay will look more oval because it doesn't actually, because it presses it due to it being tubing. So instead, there. Just a couple of... Then once I have all these in, just going to file them down with probably a fret leveling file, and then I'm going to use a leveling beam to finish that off. Lining that up with the bottom of the fretboard, like so, and then pretty much the same deal as with the binding that we did before. It's just using masking tape. There. All right, then we'll let that cure. Fill that hole with glue and then press in the dust. Getting a scalpel to help me do that a little bit. Really make sure I get it in there. Once I'm satisfied I have enough, take some more glue and seal the deal, so to speak. There. And then I repeat that same process with the rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Like so. And then let's get those square. Okay. Now we're just transferring the lines over. I don't know why I'm doing this whole teaching thing again. It's a habit I'm having a hard time breaking out of, really. Nothing wrong with it, it's just not the whole point with this build. What I'm basically doing is I'm trying to ensure having as straight string pull as I can. It is not something that is a complete must, but it is something that I try to aim for. Helps with tuning stability quite a bit, having straight string pull. So this is our first high E, low E, then 30 millimeters along, which is here. And 13 millimeters from the side of the fretboard, which is here. There. 13, which is there. 13. There's something about keeping measurements stuck in your head by just repeating them. That way you are prone to automatically think of the right number, thus avoiding that you make missteps along measuring out something that needs to be consistent.
No tear up. Very minimal tear up. That's very nice. Okay. Moving on.
And there we go. Yeah, that looks pretty nice.
All right, let's use different stop. Now, if I go to that, depth, is that a bit closer? Yeah, there we go. Okay, here it goes. And yeah, that's that. It's that easy.
Check that we're not too far off kilter. So using a ruler up against here. I don't know why I'm teaching you this now. Bad habit. Well, not bad habit, but good habit. That should be just fine. So, next up, we need to drill out all the excess for the neck pocket route. So, Forstner bit, do a little under 20 mil. Right around there will be fine. We got enough to work with. Okay. There it goes.
don't need to be too greedy about this. Fraction off the center line at the top. But as long as all of my templates for the pickups follow the same center line, I should be just fine. So that is the end of the fretboard right here. So I know where to put my humbucker. That is the scale length, which means this cavity is right around there. So essentially, I'm going at that kind of angle. There we go. Angle, yep. I want to have this not sticking out. I want it to go in a little bit, and if I check this correctly, that is 16 mil. So I am going to use a step drill, and it is this one right here. So I'm going to get it to there, and this is very nice tool. It just sits in the hole. There we go. That's gorgeous. Perfect.
Out of ink drain is nightmare.
So this is gonna take a while.
Okay, so we're getting ready to actually fret this. But before I'm going to do that, I've now sanded the fretboard down to, well, up to 800 grit, which is, you know, a lot. But I want it to look nice and shiny. Because it is a birch fretboard, I am a little, well, because it's a birch fretboard, it is a little softer than maple and other fretboard woods. So what I'm thinking of doing is gluing in the frets. Now, okay, by gluing in the frets, I am essentially making this a bit more sturdy. Now, I don't want there to be glue on the fretboard as such, because that would be a pain to actually get rid of. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to oil the fretboard at this stage so that I don't get any glue splurting onto the fretboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some 1200 grit wet and dry to spread the oil to get it to an even shinier surface. Jeez, look at that. And then after this, I'm going to clean out the fret slots. I'm not adding huge amounts of oil on here, but just enough to kind of protect the fretboard. Really rubbing it in there. All right. Awesome. And now I'm just going to use some paper here to get rid of all the excess. I'm going to start hammering in these frets, a couple of them at a time, but what I am going to do is put in a little bit of glue, which will solidify the fretboard just ever so slightly. Not a lot, just a tiny bit in the fret slots. I'm going to do 3 at a time. I'm wiping away all the excess with a damp cloth. All right, here we go. So, I don't need to teach you this. I almost started doing that again. Just gonna do it. Right. Going in nicely. It's time to get those fret ends filed down a bit. Okay, that's one side. Okay, now to Get the bevel. Do the other side. There. Now I can put in the glue. Ever so slightly too much glue. So I'm gonna take away some of that. Don't need that much. All right. No time to waste, and I'm gonna stop talking probably now. All right, let's clean up some of the spill. Time to unclamp the neck and see how we got on. See, there's a little bit of cleanup that needs to be done, but as much was suspected. Need to peel that tape out of there, but man, this is a very lightweight guitar. Very, very lightweight. It's nice. Sanding is never the most glamorous part of the job, but it's something that shouldn't be rushed. Because good sanding is key to a great finish. So put in the time and do it properly. I'm doing the outlines. So I'm gonna have the X, the letters, and then the outline of the shield. So, what? 4 pieces of pearl. There. All right, that's the first bit done. There's the finished inlay, and just for comparison, here's my hand. Yeah. So let's get to inlaying this. Right, so placing the inlay. I just put the washers in for the tuners just to get a rough idea, but essentially figured out the best way would be to just line it up with the truss rod cavity right there, or the truss rod adjustment. So I am going to draw on the center line according to that. That should be centered. Pretty much is. That out of the way. There we go. What we need to do is first get the X in place, or the cross, then put the letters, and then finally put in the shield. So basically working from the inside out. All right. Now we can go ahead and do the shield. And that's going to be pretty much done in the exact same way as the letters. So I am just going to get to it, and then we're going to clean up. And all right. Going to glue this in, and then we're going to move on to fine sanding the guitar. And as this dries, I should have more than enough time to get the thing sanded. Lightly going to press it with the hammer here. Nope, that cracked a bit. No matter, it's fine. There. All right, let's sand that down. First initial layer of oil that I put on, I usually always put on using 1200 wet and dry. So let me just prep everything. So all right, guys, got my 1200
in hand and oil going on top. And here we go. Now this wood has been drying in my storage for about 7 years, so it is really soaking it up. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, this stuff is a lot runnier than a lot of oils that I'm used to. Dog's starting to complain that I'm not paying attention to her. Oh man.
So yeah, in order to get the knot dimensions, I need to open up this cavity right here. There we go. So now it's cut, and then it's just a matter of excavating all that excess material with a chisel. So 6 mil high, essentially, and .8 thick. So let's mark out the height. I believe that this is a 42 mil nut. So 4 mil from either side. That should give me 42. I'm going to use that. I'm going to sand that down. Got the bottom of this now looking good. So I have to just fine tune the edge. Get rid of the burr.
fretboard is absolutely flat, or I should say the neck is absolutely flat. That's perfect. Got lucky there. All right, so I have the nut basically down to the right shape, but I want to do the fretwork first so that I actually get the right depth for the fret slots, or for the string slots. Nut slots, there we go. A little bit of tape on either side. And then just permanent marker, some Sharpie. And you've seen me do fretwork a million times over. So I might just actually time-lapse this. Yeah. I might just do that. All right, that's the fretwork done. Now let's get the nut sized up. First things first, let's get the height. There's quite a lot for me to take off here. So, yeah, a little bit on either edge. Just work that with the scalpel because it's a bit more clear. Not that much on that side. This side just needs a little bit of filing down. All right, cool. Now, what I usually do is I take 3.5 mil from the base side. That will be here. And take 3 mil from the treble side. Should be here. All right, so matching the angle on the headstock so I get the intonation point at the back of the nut where you want it. I'll bring them close enough, and then I'll do the fine adjustment with the strings on, just so I can get the action correct. Let's do some preliminary polishing. Do the final polish when this is actually installed, but a little bit already at this point. Gonna do the ends as well, of course, but just to get the faces done first. There, and the medium. Now it's starting to already look like something. I mean, yeah, we'll polish it again when we get it on the guitar, but just wanted to show you what it's gonna look like in the end. Single drop of super glue will do the trick very nicely.
lightly tap that in. Perfect. Great. There. Get those holes transferred over. Gonna need a scalpel. But essentially, just gonna start putting this stuff in. Really working it in everywhere with my fingernails. As well, not many are ever gonna look inside the control cavity. I do want to make it look nice. Just because I can. Or, you know, as nice as I can. I do need to look into making my own shielding paint, though. It's so easy. And it's a hell of a lot easier to apply than having to faff about with tape. There. Great. Awesome beans. There's a little bit of room to adjust. So I'm gonna do that once I get the strings on. So to hold those in place for the time being, a little bit of masking tape. Okay. Alrighty then. So I'm gonna mark one of these out as the bridge so I don't get confused with what's what. The one marked with the aluminum tape is, in fact, the bridge, the neck pickup. All right, so the one with the aluminum tape is the neck pickup. I like to have separate ground points for a lot of things so that I can best troubleshoot things if need be. Because if you just have everything in one big clump, then more often than not, when you're trying to figure out an issue, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Okay, it is a good connection. Good. This one was from the middle one. Unclamp these. Get them in place. I am going to move all this stuff out of the way for the time being. Put them under that. Now, I'm not going to say that there's little room here, but there's somewhat little room here. And there we have a jumbled mess of things. I'm going to probably use some zip ties to make it look a little nicer, but here you go. Here's a close-up. Want to have these perpendicular to the neck. That looks to be about right.
I'm gonna use a little bit of candle wax to get these screws seated in without breaking apart. Just a little bit of candle wax. We're going to do the final adjusting once the strings go on, but for the time being, or basically all we need to do is just ever so slightly put in the outermost strings and then adjust accordingly. So we're actually good to do that now. A little bit of tension would help if it was there. Sweet. Actually, it doesn't look too bad, but let's put in the low E as well. So that is the brass one. Yep, that is where I want it to be. A little bit of candle wax again. The bridge is now in place, and this neck pickup is pretty much where it needs to be. So I'm gonna get that in place now as well. Did I say bridge? I said neck. Neck pickup is in where it needs to be. All right, let us give it a little bit of a whirl. Now, one thing that I desperately need in my workspace at home is just some combo amp or some amp of sorts in the first place. It lives. Let's check that that is. Okay, so I have my switch the wrong way around. I can just switch out those wires to be opposites. It has all the different sounds. Great. Both pickups. Has all the different sounds. Neck pickup. Or bridge. Great. There's a very quick decline on that, but everything works. Now, before I forget to do it, I am going to switch out the pickups so that they're going in the right places. So I need to put that back to heat up. And because everything works, I can also clean up that cavity a little bit with some zip ties. Now, the retainer bar is not the most beautiful thing in the world, by a long shot, but it gets the job done. Gives me the right angle on my strings, which is, you know, what we want. What do you think? Oh, they have a... Okay, so... Everything feels so nice and solid. It's great. All right. Now that I have everything at this point, I'm gonna clean up the workbench so that we can get ready for tuning up and intonation and setup. So. Well, that's good. Everything plays as it should. There's no fret buzz. We'll get back to this in a minute. Now it's time to adjust the nut. Essentially, the idea is that by pressing down the 3rd fret and then trying to fret the 1st, I want that to feel effortless and not having to press down too much. Still relatively high. I have plenty that I can bring down. All right, that's pretty good. So put this as it is supposed to be. Preparing for the final hurrah, so to speak. Intonation. Oh, what am I doing? I needed to fix the output. Instead, it needs to be over there. Now. Now it should work. Remember to always do intonation from a playing position. Fixed it. It sounds beautiful. Great. That is now officially. I might bring down that pickup though. It's got good sustain. A little bit of feedback. Does it chug? Well, you tell me. I think it does. I mean, we're considering that this is going through a headphone amp into a JBL clip. It's not exactly an amp. So, yeah, I think it works just fine. I'm happy with it. I am really, really happy with it. And now there's some final things that need to be done, which is put in or close up the electronics cavity and write the certificate of authenticity. To think that this has been pretty much, depending on which way you count, 5 or 7 years coming, and it's finally done. I cannot wait to see what the owner of this
is going to think of it. Gonna find out tomorrow. One of the best pickups. One of the best guitars that I have built so far. And I'm very happy with it. I'm very proud of it too. So, let us get a certificate of authenticity. Let's find my pen. There. I have a very specific pen that I write these with. So, model name. This is dataless semi-hollow. And the first of its kind, actually, I should point out. The serial number is 0021. There we have it, folks. Here it is. Celeste 2.0, finally finished. And it has turned out so good that I am really happy with how this has turned out and come together. The fact that it plays so well that it does already straight off the bat with even my poor playing skills. I look forward to hearing what somebody who actually knows what they're doing makes it sound like.
It's been a hot minute or two. 3 years to be exact. And now it is currently, I believe, Thursday. And on Sunday, we're gonna go finally demo the Celeste build. Before we do that, it's time for a little bit of maintenance. Like I said, it's been 3 years. We're gonna have a little bit of a look on what needs to be done to this guitar. First things first, let's have a look at the neck and how straight it is. There is quite a bit of a gap there, so a little bit too much relief for my liking. So we are gonna fix that up. It's worth pointing out that the action is just appallingly high, so I need to have a look at that. Pickup height included, but the thing that concerns me is the fact that these saddles are very, very low. So I need to have a look at that. I think that the neck angle isn't great. That's a shame. It's something we can't really fix all that well. I ran out of time last time, and that is evident in the fact that the nut has not been set up. There is a huge bit of play here. We want to bring the nut slots down so we have a very comfortable feel here. So let's give that a good look. Other than that, the fret ends aren't poking out too much, a little bit, so I will give a little bit of a sand to that. Tuners seem fine. String retainer bar, that's fine. Bridge needs a look at, and pots and switch need to be tightened up, as do the strap buttons. All right, cool. We have a good list of things to look at, so let's get to it. So, setting up the nut. I'm gonna start with the low E here. That's perfect. All right, and then to repeat the same process for all the rest of the strings. I've adjusted the neck, I've adjusted the nut, broke one string, that's fine. But now, the nut feels great. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the strings, put some new oil on the fretboard, polish up the frets, give a good once over, clean everything up, and have a look in a bit. Now previously, we put on some Liberon finishing oil, but I think this time I'm actually gonna give this a true oil treatment. Just because we can. Now this is gonna give the fretboard a nice
shine while also protecting it a hell of a lot. Now, I would have originally wanted a true all type finish for the entire guitar, but we're not gonna go that excessively into kind of refinishing this entire guitar. This is just a sort of maintenance and tune-up sort of thing, but having a nice shiny fretboard is never a bad thing, so that's why we're doing this now. Great, I'm gonna let that tack up a little bit. What I did notice was probably isn't a lot of room underneath. Let's see. Yeah, there's wires in the way. I think I need to replace the springs on this, because there's not enough of a spring there. So that's what I'm gonna do. Surgical tubing is all well and good, but just not quite enough for this application. You're just gonna replace that with some steel springs. All right, that seems a bit better. Let's get rid of fingerprints, put that in place, and take a new rag and buff up the fretboard. Nice. Although I think I want to put one more layer on top of there. All right, so one thing that I am definitely going to change is this had chrome screws in it before, which doesn't really fit because they're the only ones that are this color in this entire guitar. So I'm going to switch those out for gold ones. What I am going to do is tighten up the nuts here. So holding on to the pots on the back so they don't move. Where are you? There you are. And this switch especially was pretty loose. There, so. Good, good, good. All right, last thing to do is to check intonation. So, come on, there we go. Right. All right, that's a bit sharp. All right. Great. Now, final setup, we're gonna check the action, check the neck, and I think that's it. All right, we're gonna go and demo this over the weekend, but just to test out, because back when we did the initial test for this, I didn't have my orange yet. I was playing everything through a little JBL speaker, so. And further testing to happen over the weekend. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna do the wrap up now. This has been a long time coming. The video series kind of wrapped ages ago, but the master edit has been in the works for, well, 3 years now. So sorry for the delays, but we're finally here. Got everything playing nice and well.
oiled the fretboard, new strings, adjusted everything, adjusted the nut, polished the frets, put in new screws, tightened everything up on the control layout, and in general just made it play a little bit better than what it was a couple of years ago. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye.